So thank you for having me. This is great. I mean, what an amazing spot to have this event at. It's often that we have these kind of events in stuffy conference rooms in the middle of a hotel somewhere. And by the way, I'm glad I'm first before the barbecue because once we start drinking, I think the talks are going to get even more interesting. Because, you know, by the time well, who knows what would have happened by the time the evening rolls around. So that's a little bit about me, enough about me. The question I want to ask you, because I want to spend a little bit of time and sort of tee up the evening, I hope, by talking about the future. And the way I want to talk about the future is I want to bring us back to the past. So out of curiosity here, how many of you actually went to school for marketing, like actually went and got classically trained at university for marketing, right? Wow, quite a few of you, all right? So, I mean, when I do that in the States, like one hand goes up, right? But it's true that many times these days, business, we don't have a classical training in marketing. And so I want to take a look at that as we sort of look at the next 5 years. And the question I want to start off with is, are we ready for marketing in the year 2020? And you're like, well, wait a minute, I don't even have next quarter's marketing plan done, but I mean, much less the next 5 years, for crying out loud. So, I mean, aren't we supposed to get like flying cars and cyborgs by the year 2020? And here we're talking about marketing plans for the next, but we're a lot closer to the year 2020 than we actually think. You know, when we were classically trained as marketing, I mean, I'm old enough to remember doing 5-year marketing plans, and now we can't like plan for next week. But we're a lot closer than we think. We're a lot closer to the year 2020. You're closer now than you were to the invention of the iPhone. You're closer now to the year 2020 than when the iPhone first came out. You're closer to the year 2020 than you are from your first possible tweet. You're closer now to the year 2020 than you are from the first time that you could ever have a Facebook page, unless you went to school at Harvard. And so we're a lot closer than we think. We start to lose track of time because of how fast things are moving. You know, it's common these days that the frequency of new channels, new strategies, new challenges that we have as marketers today to try and deal with all of the things that are going on and how quickly things are changing. And it's cliche now to actually open up a presentation to say, oh, Facebook is changing the world, LinkedIn is awesome here, mobile is a big deal, social is a big deal. Did you guys know that video is kind of a big thing now? Yeah, video is a big thing now. All of these changes, mobile, social, Snapchat, oh my God, now we have to have a Snapchat strategy. Why do we even have a Snap? I don't even know what Snapchat is. But so, okay, we get it. Consumers have changed. The way that consumers engage with our brands, B2B, boring to boring, or business to consumer, the way that consumers behave and consume and acquire our products and services is changing fast, beneath our feet. The challenge is that many times we haven't. We still work for companies, and B2B is especially guilty of this. B2B, we're still operating in hopefully a 20th century model of marketing, but sometimes in a 19th century model of marketing, where marketing is still thought of as some service organization to the broader, where we still call sales our customer, where we're looked at as the internal agency. And that needs to change. So before we look at the future, I want to tee up something here, and I want to suggest that we're moving into a new era of marketing. So for those of you who are classically trained at university marketing, this is going to be a little familiar to you. These are what are generally called the 6 eras of marketing. And there are 5, so the textbooks have yet to catch up to the 1999 version of this. So most university textbooks will talk about the 5 eras of marketing leading up to what was generally accepted as the 6th era, which is the relationship era, starting in the late 90s with digital. But we started in the 1850s with the trade. We went to the and they're roughly in 20 to 30 year increments. 1860s to the 1920s, the production era, sales era, marketing department era, marketing company era, and now relationship era. And what I want to suggest here is that we're actually, as we move toward 2020, as we move past 2015, and we start thinking about our strategy, we're actually moving into a new era. And so I'm going to take you through sort of the evolution of this to sort of build my case here. So we start in the late 1800s with what is called the production, or excuse me, the trade era. So in many ways, marketing didn't even really exist here. This was basically us taking our goods to market of some kind and selling the excess of what we had, hence the trade era. This is I took this picture, but it's a painting. I guess it's a scene in Amsterdam of some market. I don't know exactly where that is, but it is a scene in Amsterdam of some market that happened in the late 1800s. Then we move into really where marketing sort of becomes birthed, in the production era. And the differentiation at that point was our ability to produce product. We could actually mass produce it. The Industrial Revolution, which came here first, of course, and then moved to the States, gave the ability for companies to differentiate on the ability that we had to make products. And so marketing at that point was basically just relaying the fact that we had such products. I love this ad from Schlitz, which comes from that time period, by the way, because it talks all about the brown bottles. Did you know that beer decays in a clear bottle? Well, apparently it does. And basically, this is what would be a blog post now. But basically, this ad talks about you would never drink beer out of a clear bottle. It would just never happen. You have to have it in brown bottles. And our beer comes in brown bottles. By the way, our factories, it actually says this in the ad, our factories have brown windows. Because we care that much about the way we can make this product, therefore you should buy this product. That was the production era. And we could differentiate on that. And that lasted for a while. Basically the idea that we had it until we got to the sales era. And the sales era was marked by the fact that, first of all, we entered the Great Depression, which of course hit in the States in a very pronounced way, and it became about price. Marketing became about how do we offer this thing for cheaper? How do we offer this to the consumer for less money? How do we actually because production became commoditized. Anybody could now mass produce products. You could mass produce it in New York or in Cleveland or in Los Angeles or Amsterdam, and so that became, the differentiator went away, and basically we had to compete on price, especially in hard economic times. I love this ad, by the way. I guess things in the 1930s were really dark. And so this is Don't Sun Starve. It's basically, and I love the fact that it's shining on the baby like it's like the hot of 1,000 suns is beating down on this. Now, here's the thing. This is $26. This is a lamp for $26.50 in 1930. I did the value of money. That's a $450 light bulb to sunburn your baby because it's dark in the apartment. So don't sun starve your baby. Get this new bathroom sun lamp and burn the hell out of it. All right. Then we move into how many do we have Mad Men fans? Mad Men, you like Mad Men, the show Mad Men? Yay, all right. Those not fans, or you just never seen it or don't care or whatever. So Mad Men was really the birth of creative in marketing, where creative and advertising really got its mark. It started in the 1940s, of course, where we started to see ads that revolved around the product and the promise of a differentiation in the product. It's where we started to see celebrity endorsement. It's where we started to see, and I picked this one just because it had orange in it. By the way, congratulations. Yay, you guys. It was exciting to watch last night. Especially nice to be here after that. I was like, oh my God, please let them win. Please let them win. They're going to be in such a bad mood if they don't win. So this is, and the headline on this ad is basically what made the orange more tempting than the apple. And it was when we started to see ads, really, you know, all the ads that you think of in the Mad Men days and how those became, but it was all about the product. And then we had the marketing company era, which was really marked in the 1960s. This is where globalization started to take hold. It's where the company itself started to represent the brand and the brand promise in the content that was produced. So you had companies like Esso Oil, which put a tiger in your tank. It ultimately became a company called ExxonMobil. And that company actually, and this, I don't know if you had this here, but it's this in the States, people paid money for this little stuffed animal thing. It's not what you think it is, it's a tail. And so people would tie it to their gas tank because they had a tiger in their tank. So they actually paid money to do this. This was a global campaign to put a tiger in your tank. It actually even survives to this day in some forms in mobile Exxon advertising. And it was a global campaign. This is from the 1980s. Maybe you'll recognize any 80s kids in the room? Yep, so 80s kids, this is from KLM. This was an ad from the 1980s. And what you'll see here is that this wonderful swan flying in. There's no product. This is basically, all it is voiceover of the person saying, hey, now we're coming in for a landing. We're going to come in for a landing here. And this is still the ad. This is still the ad running. And now we actually make a landing. And there's our KLM ad. And it was basically, you can be a swan And it was basically trying to give the impression that flying on KLM is like flying a swan, I guess. And so this was the idea, is that the company became the brand. We started to think about the company and the brand promise. Then what happened was we got into the 1990s, and there was a book written by Doc Searles and his band of merry men. Who here has read the Clue Train Manifesto? Anybody? Yes? All right, great. For the rest of you, that's your homework assignment for tonight, is to go read the Clue Train Manifesto. 1997, Doc Searles and his merry band of men talked about markets as conversations, where the new empowered consumer will control the relationship with... Does this sound familiar at all? This was written in 1997, where he talked about how how conversations on the internet will control the way that marketing is done. This was written in 1997. Then, in 1996, actually, preceding this, was a book written by Martha Rogers and Don Peppers called The One-to-One Future. Another homework assignment if you haven't read that. The One-to-One Future birthed the whole CRM movement. This is before Salesforce even existed. And the idea was we will basically talk to customers one-to-one. We will market to them as people one-to-one and have... This is when Seth Godin got his traction underneath him. This is when we started talking about managing customer relationships as part of a marketing process. This book was a seminal work in terms of managing the relationship. Then in 1999, it all went to hell. And the dot-com era was born. And we started getting into this kind of a weird postmodern almost movement of advertising, where it became sort of the idea was to make fun of advertising, to make fun of the fact that we had to advertise. So dot-com companies would actually make fun of the fact that they had to do advertising and marketing. So they would have things like a spokesperson that was a sock puppet. Or where in one Super Bowl commercial, a financial services firm spent 30 seconds staring at the camera and then the last 10 seconds saying, "We just spent $1 million on this commercial, aren't we stupid?" This was the kind of content we were in, where we were making fun of marketing. Well, that, of course, blew up in everybody's face, and the dot-com bubble blew up, and we moved into where we kind of are today. The last 7 years we have spent trying to figure out all of this social conversation relationship stuff with customers. How do we figure out how to personalize our website? How do we figure out how to deliver the right message at the right time to the right person? How do we actually figure out marketing automation and make that part of our customer relationship solution? How do we actually deal with all of the social channels that are coming up? Like, does anybody remember MySpace? And all of these things are starting to come up, and they can just as quickly disappear. And now, as we start to deal with the fast iteration, we're in this, I believe, entering a new era where the relationship is really changing with the customers. The idea of privacy, the idea of what we're doing with customers, the idea of how we actually interact as brands, both on a B2B and a B2C side, how we're interacting. I believe that we're moving into a new era, which is all about experiences, of how we develop experiences for customers that delight them at every turn. And you think about some of the leading brands out there, and both the B2C and B2B side, and how they're actually working to create content and content-driven experiences that delight customers from the first time that you meet them to turning them into evangelists. Or if you like Seth Godin, The Tribe. Or if you like Guy Kawasaki, Enchanted. Or if you like any, whatever it is you like in terms of brand evangelists, that is our goal today, is to move people through a process of awareness all the way through to turning them into brand evangelists. And it is content that differentiates that movement. So where is content marketing at all of this? Well, it's really moved as we've evolved, as marketing more broadly has evolved. From the very beginning, so John Deere, which is CMI holds up as one of the sort of origins of content marketing from the 1830s. There are earlier, certainly, examples, but they were a tractor company that put out the Furrow magazine. And the Furrow magazine is widely regarded as one of the first content marketing, a magazine dedicated to teaching farmers how to be better farmers. Not selling tractors, not selling plows, but teaching farmers how to be better farmers. It's still produced today in 2014. 1.4 million subscribers, 14 different languages. It's the largest farming magazine in the world, and it's produced by John Deere. And it's pointed to as one of their biggest branding and customer service recall that they have. Sears, in the 1920s, launched an entire radio station as radio started to become a new technology for marketers. They launched a radio station. Why? To talk about all these new products that they had to draw people in from the rural farms into the city to buy these products. So they started teaching people that there was all these new products that you could have that if you just, and so they used radio to communicate that, and it created an entire radio station. Soap operas, which are also held up as one of the stalwart examples of content marketing, created in the 1930s as television really started to take over from radio, where soap companies paid for, sponsored, and in some cases actually created and produced content for television that was based on dramas, and that's why they're called soap operas. And then we have Lego with bricks and kicks. Lego is one of the leaders now in content marketing. They introduced their catalog, which was also a magazine, in the 1970s. Lego now has a movie that will probably win the Academy Award this year for Best Animated Feature. It's called the Lego Movie. I'll let that sink in for a minute. It's called the Lego Movie. It's a product as a movie that is going to actually drive so much demand for Lego toys, but it will also win an Academy Award this year. That's huge. Then we have companies like American Express creating the Amex Open Network for small businesses, business to business, that launched in the early 2000s. So there are examples of all of this. The key here is that as what we've seen is that as content marketing has been around forever, it's evolved as marketing has evolved, and what has happened is the ease by which we now publish content, the ease by which we now create and consume content, of course, has created the ability for us to match content and create experiences at all levels of the funnel. It's not just about customers that we know anymore and servicing them. It's not just about creating high levels of brand. It's about using content to facilitate that buyer's journey. The Serious Decisions statistic that's way overused that says 60% of the buyer's journey is done by the time a salesperson gets a call. That's a true statistic. They're consuming content about your brand, about your company, about the way that you approach their problem to solve before they talk to you anymore. Why? Because they can. Content is there. It's easy for your competitors to do it, therefore it's easy for you to do it. Content and marketing is not new. Content marketing is. And the reason that content marketing is because it's a process, a muscle that most organizations, especially those that are on the B2B side, haven't exercised yet. We are so used as marketers on the B2B side, even on the B2C side too, but especially on the B2B side, where we are in service to sales, where all we do is create PDFs. We're so good at creating PDFs. We're the best at creating monster PDFs. We can create PDFs in red. We can create PDFs in blue. Sales needs the hero image in a different color. Okay, well, let's give them another PDF. And now let's publish it out to the website. Why? Because we can. We have a web publishing system that publishes everything out to the web. We have 5,000 pages on our website, only 3 of which are ever read, but we have 5,000 pages. Why? Because we can. We're great at producing content. We're not great at exercising a content marketing muscle. So the 3 fundamental changes I think that are really driving this move to a new era are threefold. One, the relationship is now complicated. Right? So the relationship with the consumer does not want a relationship with us. The consumer doesn't care about our brand. The consumer wants to be delighted at every turn. They don't want to hear from us one-to-one. They don't want to have a really intimate relationship with us. They just don't. But they do want to be delighted at every step. Zappos is a great example of this. My wife has a subscription to Zappos. Every month, 4 shoeboxes arrive. 3 go back. And but does she have a relationship with Zappos? No, she just has a subscription to them because they delight. Anytime she wants a shoe, she can get a shoe and send it back. Similar to the production era, where it was moving into the marketing department era, the commoditization of products, the disruption that all of us are feeling in various businesses, whether you're a services business or a manufacturing business or a hotel, it doesn't matter. Your business is being disrupted by digital and what's going on. Your product and service is easily replicable. What's not easily replicable is your approach to solving a consumer's problem, your experience that you can create in the acquisition of that. So the difference is that loyalty now is to the approach. Jeff Ernst from Forrester says this really well. People don't buy your products and services anymore. They buy your approach to solving their problem. And that's really true. Loyalty now is to the approach, the narrative that you create, the experience in acquiring your product or service, and using the product or service is what creates loyalty now, not the product or service. The second thing is the democratization of content and experiences. So those same CMSs that enable us to produce PDF after PDF after page after page after blog post after blog post do that for our customers and our competitors as well. So there's a lot of noise out there. So yeah, content shock for sure. There's a lot of content out there that actually gets consumed by our people that we want to raise. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean that we can afford not to. It means that we need to get good at it. That our business needs to understand how to make content. There's no doubt that content will affect the business. We are creating exponentially more of it every single day. So it can be the confetti that spews out of the back weighing down the business, or it can be a strategic asset and we can treat it as such. And we can actually start to manage it and create it so that it's powerful and meaningful for our consumers. Value has to be continually created now, not just in short campaign bursts. So, what has changed? Peter Drucker has a famous quote here where he says, "The purpose of a business is to create a customer." This comes from 1950, by the way, and it could not be more true today. The business enterprise has two, and only two, basic functions: marketing and innovation. Marketing and innovation produce results. All the rest are costs. Marketing is the distinguishing, unique function of the business. We have lost our way with that. Marketing has become, as I said, a service organization in many cases, where we are in service to sales, where we can't talk to customers because we have to actually go get sales' permission or the CEO's permission to go talk to a customer. We are not in the business of describing value anymore. As classically trained marketers, we have been classically taught to describe value. We can describe features, we can describe benefits, we can describe it as blue, or it's got sort of an azure tone to it, or we can do a clever headline, come up with 3 bullet points. We need 3. You can't just have 2 bullet points. You got to have 3 bullet points to describe the value. We're great at that. But we need to change. We now create value. We create the value for the customers. We are in product development. We develop content products. That those experiences that our consumers will have in a B2B or B2C situation. Marketing is the distinct function of the business. So marketing is here to create value and continually evolve the customer. So now it's no longer good to just create a customer and then forget them. You have to create that customer and evolve that customer over time, over the entire lifespan, so that they become a brand evangelist. Loyalty is the key there. It is the experience that they have, the content that they consume with your brand that will keep them loyal, no matter what your product or service. Developing and delighting audiences, this is mine, will become the critical method by which we engage customers through the entirety of the funnel. Marketing is here to create value, not just describe it, and that's the real key. And if there's a time limitation here, listen to Jack Welch at GE, who also 20 years ago basically said when the rate of change on the outside, we know things are changing fast, when it exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. So if you need motivation to actually make this happen in your business, there it is from Jack Welch. So what do we see that are the changes that are going on here that actually affect this? Well, here's a number of the companies that we do work with. And we work with B2C companies, B2B companies, nonprofits, government organizations, all on how content is creating new experiences. Some of the things that we have seen as sort of trends from our research that we do every single year. One, we're all in silos now. It used to be that marketing was in our own silo. We had sort of our, the salespeople didn't know what we did for a living. The CEO really didn't know what we did for a living. IT people hate us. And we just sort of sat over in our little corner and did our marketing thing. Well, now we're even siloed from ourselves. We have social teams. We have social CRM teams. We have the e-business team. We have the web team. We have the PR team. We have the sales enablement team. We have the demand generation team. We have the blog team. And we have all these teams that are now creating content at stratification of the funnel for their own nefarious purposes where we actually don't even like each other. The brand team doesn't talk to the product development team, and the product marketing team doesn't talk to the analytics team, and we're crazed with this sort of teams and siloed from each other. This is changing. B2C to B2B are much different than anybody will tell you. We understand that B2C and B2B processes are different. B2C has much more complex issues with regard to store associates that are telling their story for them. With retail, distributors, all of these people that are actually helping them tell the story of their product that don't have anything to do with touching a lead. And B2B, of course, has the complexity of a multi-touch, long sales cycle. They're very, very different. And figuring out owned media and figuring out how to use owned media as a content marketing asset is the biggest challenge across both. So everybody's doing it. We know this. 90% say they're doing it when we ask. 9 out of 10 people are doing content marketing. Yay! It's experimental mode for most brands. but 90% are doing it, but nobody feels good about it. Right now, it's very, very hard for you to find people, 42% in our study, that say, well, we're getting measurable results out of this. We're getting measurable results out of content marketing. So why is that? Why is it that B2C lags B2B in confidence level? Why is it that there is a lag in confidence level to begin with? Well, we believe there's one very strong reason, is because there's a lack of strategy behind it. And the strategic approach of content and the strategic approach of a process of content is really the critical factor here. Content is everybody's job and nobody's job right now. It's the kind of thing we do the corporate blog because we need to, we have to. It's the kind of thing we do. We do social because, I don't know, we have to have a Twitter strategy of some kind. So we have a Facebook page. Yay, we got a Facebook page. We got 10 likes and 12 people in the company. We can't get Bob and Mary to like the page, darn it. So why do they feel? Those that do, by the way, feel confident about it when I don't have a graph for this, but basically those that do feel good about it, 60% versus 12% that feel like they're getting results have a documented strategy and process behind it. And here's the spaghetti against the wall. The average now of channels being managed by companies is 12, a dozen. And that doesn't even take into account the different Facebook pages we have for customer service versus sales versus marketing versus different products versus we've got one in the US, versus we've got one in here in Holland, we've got one in the UK. Oh my gosh, how many Facebook pages do we need? And we're trying to do all of this. This doesn't even count that. So these channels are expanding exponentially, and we stop asking ourselves, why are we launching a Pinterest? Why did we do that? So what's the answer? Well, let's look at a couple of people who are actually working on this. So this is a food company, and I love this because it's a B2B actual example. And the great thing is that they set a strategy here. They have an owned platform. It's a blog that they've created. And what they did was, instead of going after procurement, which is their big target market, procurement for food flavors, they make food flavors. So if you're drinking something with fruit in it, I mean, let's be honest, they're a chemical company, but if you're drinking something with fruit flavor in it, chances are they made it. They make a lot of fruit flavors. So they deal with people like Starbucks and Hershey's and all the companies that make food and their product and design people and do that. Now, the challenge is that they don't, how do you blog for a product designer who's making like the next chocolate bar or the next coffee for Starbucks? What do you do? So they decided that they were going to try something different. They actually went out and they went to the bartenders and they created a contest and a blog for all these bartenders to gather around this contest. Make the next pomegranate margarita, make the next pomegranate martini, make the next pomegranate thing, which was a new flavor they were creating. And they created this content where all these bartenders could do it, and they got 5,000 bartenders across the country to sign up for this thing. Then they had a big contest. They had it in Las Vegas. They actually created this thing. They had celebrity judges come in. They shot photos of it. They had a whole big thing. It was wonderful. They created this amazing thing. And if it was a marketing campaign, it might have just ended there. But they didn't. They kept the blog going with these 5,000, now up to 7,500 bartenders. Why? Why would they do that? Well, the reason is because they can continually deliver value to them and get two things. One is they can start to shape what happens from a demand side, because now they have 7,500 bartenders across the country, hot bartenders who feel like they could have won a contest for the best margarita or the best drink. And they can say, here's some data that you might want on trends of new flavors. It just happens to be the ones we're developing, of course. But here's some trends on new flavors. Maybe you want to try it in your bar. They can also retrieve data from those bartenders as well. They can say, what's hot? What's going on in your market? So they can get trends about what's going on in the future. So they're actually getting wonderful product development insight from these bartenders who have their pulse on what's going on in the fashion of food, in this case drink mixology. And they also have the ability to influence those influencers by saying, here's some data about some new trends that you might want to try. So it's they can start creating demand for a product before there is even demand for it. It's a wonderful program for them. And maybe my favorite story of all time is Kraft and what Julie Fleischer is there doing with regard to her owned media platform, content marketing strategy with Food and Family magazine. So she inherited this. She just stumbled into it. They just basically said, here's a print magazine that's not making, we got to kill it. Here it is. And she's like, oh my gosh, she's like fearing for her job. Like, they just gave me this thing that they're going to kill, and now they want me to manage it. And the interesting thing is here is that she found it, and she found that it was costing them a lot of money to send this magazine out to all the people. They had 3 million subscribers that they were actually sending this magazine to every month. And so she did a really innovative thing. She said, you know what, we're just not going to kill it. We're actually going to make people pay for it. So she sent everybody a note basically saying, this is your last issue. If you want to continue to get it, you're going to have to pay the money to receive it every month. She only lost 20% of her subscribers. Content was that good. And then she launched a website to complement this thing, where they now have 3.1 million opt-in subscribers. And she's like, great, okay, now what do we do with it? We have 3.1 opt-in million subscribers. We got all these print magazines. What do we do with it? The fascinating thing is that with 3.1 million subscribers, opt-in subscribers, the amount of data that she has is unbelievable. And the key is that she actually has a bigger audience than the Food TV network. It actually makes more sense for Food TV to advertise with her than it does the other way around. And what she did was she went to all of her product marketing managers and she said, hey, would you like insight into what women 18 to 34 in Washington, D.C. think about mayonnaise? Or would you like to know what people in Texas think about cheese? I have that data. In fact, I can actually retarget ads to them. So when you're going out and buying television advertising or email or any other print ads or any ads, I can actually give you the information that you're already paying an external research company for. But I have it, and I have it in bigger than anybody. My audience is bigger than the Food TV network. So she found a home in the media buying department where she now provides insights to them in terms of the data on all of the things that she's discovering about her audience. And that's a great strategy. These days, we have to grab attention and hold it. It is not just about doing campaign after campaign, getting attention, and then forgetting about it. I love these two pictures because, first of all, look how happy the guy at the top is. He's just spent $1,000 to buy 2 devices that can send email and do phone calls. And he's so happy about it. His friend is happy for him, too. His friend is maybe even happier than he is. And these 2 kids, look how happy they are to clutch a catalog. They're clutching a catalog like it's the best thing ever. Joe, who I don't have kids, so I don't get to experience this, but Joe talks about his kids run to the mailbox to get the Lego catalog. So holding attention is the key. We've got to stop acting like a media company and actually become a media company. Actually think about the value that we're delivering and creating for those customers, those consumers, and figuring out then the business goal that it supports. That's the real key here. Marketing has changed. We now are responsible for this entirety of this funnel, but we haven't changed. We still look at content and digital as some sort of separate thing from real marketing. That's, oh yeah, we do content marketing over that. We got some agency doing it or whatever. We do this. We're trying a corporate blog, but it's not working. It doesn't matter that it's just our press release feed and that every blog post talks about how great we are, but yeah, it's content marketing. It's not working. We still look at it as separate. We still think of measurement as a way to measure transactions instead of deepening the relationship with our consumers. 80%, this is an IBM number, 80% of the measurement data that we have right now we use to facilitate another transaction or more transactions instead of deepening the relationship with our consumer. How can we start to use data to figure out what our consumer wants and what we should be delivering rather than just how do we facilitate another sale? And then finally, we still think of content as an attribute of marketing instead of the value in and of itself. Content is just this byproduct that we create that hopefully generates success on another campaign. And we got to change that mentality. We have to change it into, this is the value, this is the differentiating value of our proposition out there. Gartner just came out with a study where they talked about the young people, right, the millennials. I hate when, one of the reasons I love the David Bowie song so much is the millennials get blamed for a lot. But being smart about marketing and digital shouldn't and is not one of them. And the Gartner guy basically blamed all of the sort of disruption and everything and the inability for companies on the millennials, the digital natives. And I say fear not the marketing hipsters because the marketing hipsters will deliver us into great experiences and content. It's starting to already happen. Rebecca Lieb at Altimeter Group is doing some wonderful work in this space, by the way. If you want to download a great white paper of hers, just search for Content Marketing Rebecca Lieb and white paper and you'll find it. It's wonderful. Talks about how this fragmented approach to content basically just leads to bad things. There's nothing good that comes out of a fragmented approach to content. And it's all about delivering a customer experience. Content has to be a process that is managed strategically in the business. It just has to stop being everybody and nobody's job. So how do we do this? How do we actually start from square one? Well, our experience is that what's happening now is that there is something good happening in every business. Somebody's creating. It's never the case that we get a call from the CMO saying, I need a content marketing strategy and I need it now. No, what's happening is that the social media person or the email person or the web team or one of those teams that I mentioned before calls up and says, I need to drive some sort of ROI for my program, and content is the way that I'm going to get there. I need something to talk about except us on social media. How am I going to get there? There are pockets of excellence usually happening in every business. And the question is to identify those pockets and start to build them one house, one street, one neighborhood at a time. That's the real key here. And ask yourself, ultimately, what are you designed to do? What are we designed to produce the results that we're producing? In other words, if you're happy with your results, if you're happy with what's going on in marketing right now, maybe you don't need to change. Maybe you can go on your merry way and there would be no disruption and content won't make any. Are we producing the results that we are designed to produce? And I would argue that you are producing, but it's because we're designed in a very particular way. We are already designed to produce the results. We are producing these results because we're designed in a process that works that way. And the key to that is to change that process. To change the idea of content as this byproduct that we're creating, and instead create a strategy where it is the strategic asset that it should be. And I love this quote from Buckminster Fuller, which basically says, you're never going to change things by fighting something that already exists. You're going to change things by creating something new, creating a new process in the organization that actually means something, where content is a strategic asset that deserves to be managed as such. And with that, I will turn it over to the rest of the speakers. I'm around. Apply me early because I'm going to be drinking beer. No worry about that. And I thank you so much for your time, your attention, and for having me out here. It's been a true pleasure.